Okay, we're recording and live streaming. You may begin.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, I'll call this special meeting of the Board of Finance to order. I'll do a roll call. Myself, Tim O'Brien is here. Glenn Frischman, are you on?
Here.
Mike Farbeck is not here. Lynn Young, are you on? I don't see her. Bob Stachin?
Here.
Deb Norman, I don't see. And Dave Motherway.
Here.
And then Jim Sullivan is on.
Correct.
And Jill Senior is on taking notes. Minutes, rather.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. All right. First item on the agenda, which I don't have in front of me, is the discussion of targets. So this is something historically the Board of Finance has done, and I think that in this environment, it's even more important to take a look at it and give the department heads and the different boards and commissions that have impact on the budget for the next fiscal an idea of where the Board of Finance is thinking and what we're doing. So typically what we have looked at is Social Security rate of increase for the coming year, CPI, and then other extenuating circumstances such as contractual obligations and other financial decisions we've made or liabilities we've encumbered that we're anticipating. Given that, I will start with Social Security is showing a 1.3% increase for next year, and the CPI is currently showing at 1.2% for the year. I think the CPI is a little misleading. Food is up 3.7% for the trailing 12 months, and energy is down 9.4% for the preceding 12 months. So the overall CPI of 1.2, I think, really is misleading to what the underlying economic situation is and what's going on. Given that, we are, I think, Member Frischman, do you want to mention what you said to me about the collections in January?
Well, my concern, Mr. Chairman, Glenn Frischman, is that we don't know what effect the pandemic is going to have on the January collections. Our collections in the first half were, quite frankly, better than I expected, but a number of large entities paid their entire year taxes at once. And given the fact that we're a hospitality industry town and some of these restaurants are not going to reopen, there's a high unemployment in the hospitality field, I think we need to be very, very judicious. I think a reasonable target is like 1.5% in the budget, and we need to very finely prioritize every nickel that we plan on spending, because we may have to adjust downward.
And so I reached out also. I know that Mike Fauerbach was not going to be able to be on the call. His feelings, I wanted to get his input. He echoed Member Frischman's comments that next month's tax collections are really going to be more telling. All of us were, I would say, pleasantly surprised, but from the collection rates from what we've seen in 2020, but I think there's still huge pressures on the taxpayers for 2021. Mike was also, and I think he has a very good point here, that it may be difficult to give a single guidance for all the departments because there's likely to still be some, as he put it, nuances to deal with in regards to mandates that different departments have to make, existing contractual obligations, and still some COVID-related expenses which we may still encumber going forward. So he is also in favor of being conservative. He was thinking in the like 1.5 to 2% range at the given moment, but the answers to the questions of the tax collections and such are really going to shape his feelings, as Member Fauerbach also said. Bob Stachin or Dave Motherway, do either of you want to offer something?
Yeah, this is Dave Motherway. Mr. Chairman, I think that to balance Glenn, right, and Mike, I would say we go between 1 and 1.5 to be conservative, because we really don't know. And there has been, great. We had good tax, revenue this past time, but this upcoming month, folks are going through this a second time in less than a year, and it's having significant impact now. So I would be as conservative as we're capable.
Thank you, Dave. Bob, do you have any?
Yeah, Tim, can you work me through what figures this impacts? So we're deciding on a 1.5 to, it sounds like we're deciding on a 1.5 to 2% increase. And can you work me through what actual figures we're impacting in this decision?
So right now, this decision is just a guidance, just to give the different departments an idea of where the Board of Finance is thinking. They could still come in at 3, 4, 8%, but they have now. This is to give them an idea of where the thinking is for the Board of Finance, so that we don't go into meetings and budget presentations and deliberations and start off very far, wildly apart, because they had no input from us up to then. So,
and the number last year was how much? I remember we then this number that we presented last year, was it? Did we? I remember we put it pretty low last year, I believe.
Last year, Jim, do you want to go through what the actual was? I think last year we gave a guidance of 2%.
I don't have it in front of me. I have to go out to the car and grab it. I can step away for a second if you'd like.
No, I will verify that after the meeting and get it out to y'all.
Okay.
But we then being concerned about COVID and what was going on, we then whittled down from that to a 0 increase year on year for taxes for the people, for the taxpayers.
Yeah, Tim, do you remember the guidance we gave them, though, in this process last year?
I believe it was 2%. It was in that 2% range.
Mr. Chairman, Glenn Frischman, has there been any word from the state regarding, because we're on a 10-year decline on ECS, but the state is looking at a $3+ billion shortfall for the coming fiscal. So I fear that our ECS may be on a more accelerated reduction than the 10-year that was talked about 2 years ago.
Yeah, we felt that way last year, and nothing changed. So we
that
pushed
was
everything.
Though.
No, we because COVID hit. If you remember, we stopped having in-person meetings during our budget deliberations. And we were concerned due to the COVID impacts, it was going to push the ECS down. It did not, but we pushed everyone down very hardly, and they made some really hard cuts. And we have buildings that are leaking roofs. We have heating that is not really functional in certain buildings. So we have some encumbrances. So I want to stress that these are guidances, and that we know there are going to be some pressures, because we put the pressures on in the spring, knowing COVID was hitting and not knowing the extent of what it was. And we still, to be honest, we still haven't seen the fiscal impact to the town fully at this day and age. So I can't, as many as the times that we've done in the past and we've said these are guidances, I can't stress that enough now, that it's really solely a guidance, and we need more facts to really back up the guidance. To Dave Motherway's point, it very easily could head to a much lesser number quickly due to COVID impacts that we start realizing and have to pay. I don't know, Bob, did that kind of, it was a long-winded way of saying what we tried to do in years past was look at Social Security, look at CPI, and get a feel for where we thought the taxpayers would willing to handle, and then issued that as a guidance. Bob, you're muted if you're trying to talk to me.
I guess Mike was looking at 1.5 to 2 is what he said in your communication with him.
Yeah, he was in the 1.5 to 2 range as a guidance, with a caveat that the unknowns that we don't know right now could make it be much less if the tax collections in January are much different than what we've experienced so far through 2020.
Okay, thank you.
And
So,
and Tim, this is Dave Motherway. Traditionally, what has been the range we've provided? A half a point, or because if we have a latitude to do a full point range, then I would say, to provide guidance at 1 to 2 type of approach, with the caveats that we don't know what the tax revenue looks like, and we could be coming at 1, but if things mirror what we saw earlier this calendar year, it could be 2, right? I mean, so just communicating what the realities might be. Just a thought.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, Dave. What we can issue whatever guidance or input we would like. So it can be as detailed or as finite as we want it to be. We can go to 3 decimal places on the percentage if we want. But I think we have the first select woman on here, so I think she's hearing the discussion of we're in the 1 to 2 range basically, and is what we're thinking of, and that I think a 1.5 as a general indicator seems to be the feeling of the overall board. However, if things come in better, we don't have a real way to increase it once the budget is passed. So, like I said, these are guidances that will be refined through the spring as we get into that.
Hi, Bob Stachin again. Tim, can you give me an idea historically of the range that we've done? I mean, we've probably done 0 to 3. I mean, I can't see a board of finance ever saying, you got 10% to play with. I mean, has there ever been? I mean, is it generally historically, in your recollection, in your time on it? I guess member Frischman as well has been on a while. Has it generally always been like a 1 to 3% recommendation, or have we ever deviated from, or a 0 to 3%?
Last year was 0, and the 2 years prior was 2%. This year, I think probably 1 or 1.5 is better.
So,
Well, last year, let's be clear though. Last year, my notes here that I just found and pulled up said our initial recommendation in December was 2%, based on social and CPI. What we wound up at was 0 after the deliberations and COVID hit. So,
Actually, Tim, what we ended up with was minus 2.85.
right, yeah,
That's what I remember.
But
because we couldn't use funds out of fund balance, so we had to drop that to keep the compared to what we did year prior. So yeah,
Right.
we did. You're right, Jim. Thank you for that clarification. It was negative.
But bear in mind too, that's the budget, that's the expenditure budget. But actual tax revenues did go up 0.99% because of losses in other revenues. So even though we had a decrease in expenditures, the tax burden did go up by almost 1% last year.
Right. But the mill rate stayed the same.
Mill rate stayed the same, but because other revenues were down, we
Right.
had to make them up with taxes. Yep.
But we had anyway, we don't need to.
Okay, hey guys, this is Tim. This is Lynn. I'm sorry, I had trouble getting in. I don't know why that's been going on lately, but I just did get in. Did you come up with a number already?
No, we're still in the middle of the deliberations. So what I was saying was Social Security is a 1.3% increase next year. CPI is running 1.2, but it's a little it's a little deceptive because food's up 3.7% when you look at the CPI, and energy is down 9.4. So CPI is a little deceptive this year. Dave Motherway was thinking 1 to 1.5%. Mike Fauerbach and I were thinking 1.5 to 2%. Glenn was thinking in the 1.5%. And Bob was, we were in the middle of the discussions with Bob when, so he had some other historical background when you came in. So that's kind of where, that's the quick summary of everything right now.
Thanks. Sorry.
No worries. I see a hand from the first select woman.
I didn't want to interrupt. I don't know if I also joined him late. Did Jim get to go into our contractual obligations with the union for increase? I think it's 2.7.
Yeah, we didn't go into the contractual increases because I think that those usually get flushed out after the increase. You know, we give a recommendation, they come back, and then we see what the contractuals are because they're different for different departments and different encumbrances.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, Jim could say more, but I think just to say, I mean, we do have the last year's 2.6, this year's 2.7. That's already been agreed to years back. It's 3-year standing, I think, union agreement. So just, you know, we have to do that. So that means cuts in other places. So just to keep that in mind. And I guess just while I have the floor, you know, like Tim said, last year we did work, I think, really well together to decrease it as we saw the economic impact happening. But just to remind people that we did have to decrease the budget so significantly, that there is a lot of deferred maintenance that's even growing more now. So I just want to be sure, not just, you know, on the SIP, but also on the staffing side. So just to kind of be sure everybody's thinking about that too.
But Danielle, this is Lynn. If the budget, you know, payroll is not 100% of the operating budget, right? So if the ups for that's 2.6 or whatever, if it's, I don't know, how much of the budget is it? Is it half the budget? Because that would get us to the 1 to the 1.5.
That's about 25%.
Yeah, that's it. So you're not, so, you know, if the budget target's 1 to 1.5% or 1.5 to 2 or whatever, and you have that structural labor contract in there, you're still getting extra money, or about, it would be about the same, maybe depending on which side of the range we went with.
Or you can always reduce staff if you have other more pressing needs of different types.
I'm pretty sure we're one of the most efficient, streamlined, scrappy towns in the state. So I don't think we can reduce that.
Before we get into, you know, all we're trying to do here at this meeting is provide guidance for where we anticipate being. I think, as the members have said, the tax collection rates, assuming that's all in January, is going to be very telling. And the deliberations will last through March into April. So before we get into talking about what potentially we could do, let's let the departments come and get with the select women and the Board of Ed, get together and figure out what they can do.
And Tim, this is Dave Motherway. Just a given that the revenue in January will be have a significant impact on what we're able to do. You know, my recommendation is we err conservatively now, and if we are able to revise that after January, then we do so. It's if that's possible.
Yeah, everything's reviewable through until we pass a budget, which is, you know, typically May, June time period. So right now it's just so that they've already presented or pulled their budgets together for starting meetings in January. So now's a good time to make sure we're not miles apart, that we're closer together. So I think what I'm hearing, the sense of the board is maybe to split the difference between the 1 and the 2, say a 1.5% general. And we can, you know, discuss this more. I'm not trying to say we're done, and I don't want to hear this from anyone. But a 1.5% budget increase pursuant to review as January tax collections come in. And I won't say that review is going to make it, you can go higher or you got to go lower. I just want to say pursuant to that review because it could go either way.
I support that.
I would too.
Glenn, what's your
Makes sense.
sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a very prudent plan.
Yep, I support that. Yep, that sounds good.
Okay. So the guidance that we'll give out for next year's budget presentations is 1.5%, but we'll put out the tax collections. Tell everyone to monitor the tax collections in January, and then that will help shape and refine where we think we can get to for next year. Given that it's a guidance, I don't think that I need a motion. Jim, would you say that's correct?
I think a resolution would be in order, just so it's an authoritative. That I have the word of God.
Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. I move that the Board of Finance issue guidance to all departments for no more than 1.5% overall budget increase.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Dave Motherway for the second because I heard him first and he said who he was. Any discussion? The only thing, do we want to make sure to put the caveat in the motion that it's subject to the tax collection and other COVID-related factors as we move forward in the budget cycle?
I'll amend my motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other discussion? Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? State your name and that you're opposed. Motion unanimously carries. All right. Being that is the only agenda item on this, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And as long as the first selectman doesn't want to comment on that.
No.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time today, and stay safe and be careful with the snow tomorrow.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye-bye. Merry